Dean Obeidallah. He wants to be your Muslim friend.
Most Muslims, I know many, are great people.
Watch this.
People.
You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where comedy meets politics and all things in between.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live. It's January 2nd, 2019. First news show of the new year. I got a lot of energy. I was off for like 10 days talking to strangers on the subway about politics. They're like, get away from me. But now I'm back on the show, and joining me in studio, and we'll try to take some calls as well. We're going to stick to politics, but the law as well. Our friend Eli Mastal, he's the editor of Above the Law. He writes about politics, pop culture. Before that, I guess it's City Hall News and New York Press.
Yeah. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, my friend.
I was with my family, so around my Christmas table, we were all just talking about how cool Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is. Like that's
really that's it.
Yeah, that's.
And tomorrow is the day she gets sworn into Congress.
Yeah, we're excited for her.
So I have to ask you about a tweet here because you have to make sense of this. It sounds something like it would come out of Game of Thrones. Ellie tweeted, "The death rattle of every tyrant is worse than everything that's come before."
That was the other Christmas conversation around my table, right? Because I had a lot of, my family is very liberal and they were all very hopeful for 2019. And I'm like, boys, you guys got to realize like 2019 is going to suck because what we have seen throughout history, and this is what I was trying to convey in that tweet, tyrants do not fade quietly into the night. As they get closer to the end, history tells us that they become more paranoid. They try harder to hang on to power, and that desire to hang on to power and that paranoia leads to more brutality. And so, like, the obvious example is Hitler. As the Allies closed in, that's when the Holocaust, the final solution, really gets going in the most terrifying way. Okay. He's the obvious example. But you can go back to Rome. You can go back to Emperor Tiberius with the treason trials. You can go back to Caligula as it all started to come down. His brutality got worse. And you can even go to literature. If you look at Macbeth, I mean, the end of Macbeth is the most violent he becomes. So again, there are a lot of I think Americans are a little bit spoiled, right? Because our true worst president up till now left, right? Nixon got on the helicopter and he flew away. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have this expectation that that's how Trump is going to go out. But people forget that Trump is already so much worse than Richard Nixon. He's committed more crimes. He has less respect for America. He has less respect for her people. And so to think that Trump is just going to, go to that great big Mar-a-Lago in the sky, I think is foolhardy.
If there was a movie ending, did I ask you this last time? If there was a movie ending that would sum up how the Trump presidency is going to come to an end, is there a movie that comes to mind or a scene from a movie?
I don't think I can say it without getting a visit from the Treasury Department.
Right, we don't want that. Nothing. You could just say a title.
I could Scarface.
Something from Scarface. Interesting. That's exactly what I think too. So obviously people who are autocrats or dictators who want power, who will do anything to keep power, it's understandable that it would get worse as the more they feel threatened.
Mm-hmm. They get more paranoid. I think that's the scariest.
What I find is interesting is Donald Trump, right now he goes, Liz Warren announces and he says a comment about her and tweets about it. But when he's got like 25 Democrats attacking him, I have an analogy. In my view, it's like a cat chasing a laser pointer. Like he's just running in a circle, like slamming things, and he can't stop. And he might be like the whirling dervish president, just nonstop spinning out of control. Unless what he probably will do is come up with one nickname in his mind, like the 25 elves or some stupid thing like that, right? And like the 25, like he was doing with Robert Mueller's 13 Angry Men or something like that.
And he's going to love it because he loves being the center of attention. And he's one of these people that doesn't believe in the concept of bad press. So as long as people are talking about him, even if they're talking, I mean, look at Mattis, right? Mattis left criticizing and throwing bombs at him, and people on Fox News had to explain to him that Mattis was insulting him before he got it. All he heard is his name. If he hears his name, he's happy, right? So he really is like, it's just like the cat is happy as long as they're chasing after a ball of yarn. Right. Trump is happy as long as he hears his name. I just made Trump happy. Twice.
It's remarkable. It's also, Mattis clearly resigned in protest. And now Trump is saying, Trump is saying he fired him today. I essentially fired him. So it doesn't matter. I mean, Trump will spin things the way he wants. I don't really care. Ellie writes about law all the time. He's on MSNBC all the time talking about legal issues. Just as a refresh, we covered it before, but I think 2019, these issues are going to become on the forefront.
Yes, let's reset the board.
So let's reset the board. It's 2019. It's January 2nd here. indictment. Can Trump, let me ask you, there's a lot of discussions about can Trump be indicted? Let me ask you first specifically, can the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, or Robert Mueller's team indict Donald Trump?
There is an advisory guidance that suggests that the DOJ should not indict a sitting president. And there is every reason to believe that a person like Robert Mueller, who seems to be very straightforward, very by the book, not one to make waves, despite what Trump says about him,
right,
is inclined to follow that guidance. Now, I keep pointing out that this is guidance. This is not a law. This is not a constitutional precept.
Right, exactly.
This is DOJ guidance, but most people follow the guidance, and one would expect Mueller to follow the guidance and therefore feel like he did not have the authority to indict a sitting president. Moreover, I think that if Mueller indicted him, or if, let's say, SDNY indicts him, because that guy, it's unclear if that guidance applies to the various U.S. attorneys' offices, although they are still technically within the Department of Justice umbrella. Should anybody indict him? I mean, New York just got a new attorney general.
Right, we'll talk about that in a second, but let's keep the federal one first.
Should anybody indict him, that case would likely be challenged and go up to the Supreme Court, where Trump has recently installed a Supreme Court justice who believes that the executive office is much more like a constitutional monarchy than a representative government, right? So he believes in a theory of the executive. I don't want to legal nerd out on people, but it's called the unitary executive. The point of that is that Brett Kavanaugh believes that the executive office is ensconced in so much power that everybody who works for the federal government in the executive branch fundamentally is serving at the pleasure of the president. So the concept, for instance, that the attorney general serves the American people and is not the president's personal lawyer is not really one that Brett Kavanaugh believes in.
No, and if anyone has seen the movie Vice, and if you haven't seen it, the new movie by Adam McKay with Christian Bale, they do a big thing on the theory of the unitary executive, which essentially that Scalia came up with for Dick Cheney and George Bush. And if you'll see it, it's a pretty good movie. The movie's good. I was hoping it was going to be great. It was a good movie. But there's a big scene in there explaining that in great detail. So DOJ, so federal prosecutors, at least hamstrung by guidance. New York Attorney General, though, not under the purview at all of DOJ. Can the New York Attorney General, the new one, Tish James, tomorrow say, we have enough evidence, we're going to a grand jury, and we're going to indict Donald Trump?
Oh, hells yes. She absolutely could. I don't know if she would. And again, if she does, we can expect that to be challenged. However, there is better precedent on the side of this kind of state action. We already know from Bill Clinton and his Paula Jones issues that a president can be charged and can be civilly charged for actions that happened before they were president.
Right.
So anything kind of arising out of all of the apparent illegalities coming out of his charities, all of his apparent illegalities coming out of his real estate organization, all of that kind of are more likely, any tax charges, a lot of those are more likely to be New York state crimes. And as far as we know, there's nothing preventing a state attorney general or a state from suing the president. Again, that would probably be litigated, but then you get to the ultimate caveat.
So here's the big issue, because a lot of times you watch lawyers on cable news have this really intelligent conversation about, can you indict a president or can you not? And a lot of them will come down, well, in this case, perhaps there should be an indictment because there are allegations that Trump committed fraud to get to the office about the campaign finance violation. But that the ultimate question doesn't often get brought up. Even if he's indicted and they say it's okay and he's convicted in a courtroom in federal or state court, he's still president.
Donald Trump constitutionally can serve out the rest of his presidency from Rikers.
Right. And
still be the president of the United States. There are only two ways to remove a sitting president from office against his will. Right? Well, I guess three if you count death.
Right.
But assuming that he survives, there are only two ways to remove him against his will. One is impeachment, which we've all talked about. I think most people know. It's a constitutional provision. You get impeached by a majority of the House. The Senate has to vote as a 2/3 majority to convict. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over the trial. That's the impeachment process. Or by operation of the 25th Amendment, which requires basically the entire cabinet to say that this man is crazy and can't do that. Right. And those are the only two ways. Every other way, I mean, you hear, I spend a lot of time on liberal Twitter. You'll hear ridiculous arguments. This presidency is going to be annulled. No, no Q. No, it's not. Okay, there's no constitutional provision for that. There's no other legal way. There's no legal way to remove Trump from office if you don't have 20-odd Republican senators agree.
And that's an important point because there are, the progressive porno movement out there, which is like sells dreams that are not based in any reality whatsoever, that we're going to impeach both Trump and Pence at the same time and they're both going to be gone, all this stuff. I'm like, and that's why I'm glad when I have you on or Danny Savalas or other lawyers to talk about this from a legal, nonpartisan point of view. I mean, and even though you're a partisan, we're both real progressives, that the Constitution is the Constitution. And unless you can amend it, the system is the president cannot be removed. That means Donald Trump could be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt in federal court of numerous crimes, including shooting someone on Fifth Avenue. There's no triggering an automatic removal from office according to the Constitution. A political remedy is the only way, and that's through impeachment and indictment. Impeachment and removal.
A lot of these fantasies that people have about getting him out of power, and again, I don't like him. I wish he would go away too. But, I mean, you're talking about a coup.
Yeah.
And look, if we want to talk about a coup, we could talk.
That's tomorrow's show.
Yeah, my ancestry goes back to Haiti. We could talk about some coups.
Okay, right.
But like that's where you kind of get to. If you don't have 20 Republicans willing to remove him from office, if he doesn't resign, if you're not going to declare him constitutionally unfit to hold office, then there's no other way to get him out of there. And he's going to run again in 2020.
Yeah, and that's such an important point, that just to keep things in reality when we have these discussions about this issue, because our dream is that he's out of office. There's only a few ways of doing that, and convicting him doesn't do it. So
you got to tamper down.
There might be an indictment, but it's not over. There could be a conviction, and there are going to be countless Americans thinking if he's convicted, he's out of office automatically. This is not town council where they might have some law like that. This the U.S. Constitution controls the presidency, and even the House and the Senate. If the person will not step down voluntarily, they have to remove them through the impeachment process, because that's the way our Constitution was drafted.
And you also have to, I mean, this also goes into the expectation managing of the Mueller report, which I think for the most part, Republicans and Trump especially has done a good job with. They've tried to set the goalposts at if Mueller doesn't have Trump in the study with the candlestick hacking Russian emails, then there was no collusion and no crime, which is not the standard, is not what we should be focused on. But at least for that 40% of his base, they think that's the standard, that he has to actually like have done the hack himself in order to be indictable or whatever. So I think the expectations game with the Mueller report, that Mueller is kind of ride in on a white horse and save the country. I don't think that's reasonable, and that kind of goes to my point about 2019, because just because Mueller doesn't remove him from office does not mean that Mueller cannot make things very, very bad for Donald Trump and his family. So I'm not saying that the Mueller investigation is not important or toothless or won't succeed. It's just we have to understand what the victory condition looks like.
And I think for different people, it'll be different things. I was just looking up quickly. There was a federal judge, if I recall correctly, was actually convicted and wouldn't resign and had to be impeached, just to make the point that this is the only remedy for federal officers, president down. So you sort of touched on Mueller. We have no idea what Mueller's timeline is. I wish we did. Everybody guesses. Nobody knows. What do you think is likely we will see, though, this year? I know there's a sense of speculation here, but from, you write about law, you've covered law. What do you think is plausible and reasonable to expect from Mueller?
Well, we're definitely going to get, I think, an answer on the obstruction issue, right? Like, I don't, in part because we already know that he obstructed justice, right? In part because all the evidence is already out there. I think that just has to kind of be put into a binder and presented to somebody. I think the obstruction thing is, because at this point, who else do you talk to? Right. I think the actual conspiracy collusion investigation goes on much longer. I think, for instance, as we saw over the new year, there's a secret filing with a foreign, probably bank that's fighting the subpoena. So Mueller is still following the money on the Russian collusion issue. So I don't think that gets wrapped up anytime soon.
Yeah.
But, probably before it gets warm again up here in the Northeast, we're going to have an answer on obstruction.
But I wonder if Mueller would give a piecemeal report or just wait for the whole thing. I mean, Ken Starr his conclusions were done at the same time, I assume. I'm not sure. But he gave one report. I wonder if Mueller just waits for everything. And that could be over a year from now. That's why the Attorney General in New York, Tish James, her timeline could be much quicker. There's already been an investigation by the acting AG who was up there. And it's all, local stuff, to be honest, from charity violations. I mean, he violated the charity laws. The question if it's to the point of criminality or just civil fines. He used it like his own piggy bank. And that's actually the words of the complaint against him. He was using it as his own piggy bank.
There's also the SDNY investigation that keeps rolling on. Look, in terms of Russian collusion, I think that I am of the opinion that we will not be anywhere close to the end until the kids start falling. Like, I really, from everything we've seen, I don't see. Remember, guys, they haven't interviewed Donald Trump Jr. They haven't interviewed Eric Trump. They haven't interviewed Ivanka Trump. That suggests that they are targets. Yeah. You would not close this investigation down without interviewing them unless they were targets, to my opinion, to my mind. Sure. So I still think that there is a big shoe to drop with the children and their legal exposure, either from Mueller directly or from SDNY. And we won't be able to start predicting when the children drop, that will be the official kind of beginning of the end.
Imagine Donald Trump, an indictment, breaking news, Donald Trump Jr. indicted, and Trump pardons him like 5 minutes later.
That storyline, I think, still has to play out.
Right. And then you wonder if the state, if there are crimes that that state, wherever, it would probably be New York, could file against Donald Trump Jr. or not.
Yep.
And is the pardoning obstruction of justice with Trump because if the son was going to be involved in a case that would be against his dad?
Yep.
Legal acts can be deemed. The federal court in Texas ruling the ACA unconstitutional.
Oh, that's crazy password.
Right, but there was a decision over the weekend actually by this judge, which was actually good on some level, but it's still in peril. And I think it should be, and we can touch on what is severability and why this case is really troubling. Not to get it too legally wonky, but I think it's important people understand why there are a lot of legal experts going, the judge's decision in Texas was ridiculous because of this concept of severability. Let's take a quick break, come right back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show.
Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. New year, January 2nd, 2019. Tomorrow, big day. Democrats take over the House. What a great day, Ellie. That's going to be, everyone worked so hard to make that happen.
Blue wave.
Savor the victory. Blue wave, 40 House seats.
40 seats. I mean, election night, it looked like a blue rainstorm.
Right.
But as it went on, it became a real wave. And that's exciting.
And tomorrow will begin the internal Democratic fighting in the House caucus, which is already going to happen. We're already seeing signs of it, but that's life. But Kendall, I'm not going to say our favorite Trump supporter, but he has a Trump. Kendall, how are you? You're on with Ellie. He's a lawyer. We're both lawyers, but he writes about the law. How are you, Kendall? Happy New Year.
You too. I'm doing fine.
So let's go. What are you going to accuse us of now?
election-
Go ahead, tell us. What accuses us something?
Literally on election night, the night he got elected, I heard Democrats talking about impeaching him.
Yeah.
That night, that very night he got elected, before he served the day as president, there was Democrats talking about impeaching him.
That's
So your
just-
argument-
Every show you've done in the last 2 years has been about how much you hate Trump and how much you want him out of office.
So your argument is that he has not committed crimes?
How is this not a big fancy coup? You want him out by any means necessary.
But you would need Republicans in the
I'm-
Senate to vote for the removal.
To me,
You
I'm
would
asking a
need-
simple. I was just asking a simple question. Do you think that he's committed crimes?
I don't think he committed any worse crimes than. I believe his kids will be indicted.
Wow.
I believe he will be indicted. I believe.
And then we're going to raise
I-
Trump
I-
Tower. We're going to
I
burn it to the
believe-
ground like in Game of Thrones.
I guess what crime would he have to commit to make you feel like it was worse than other presidents?
Or worthy of impeachment. Kendall, is there a crime? Seriously, forget being
just
Trump
forget
supporter for a second.
politics for a second.
Yeah, what
is
kind
there
of crime?
a crime that the president could commit that would make you think that he had to be removed from office?
Nothing I've seen so far.
I'm just asking theoretically. Is there something that he could do?
Like if he shot somebody, is that enough?
Sure.
All right, so we can walk back with it. We got murder.
Okay, so murder. So murder.
Murder got Kendall's vote.
Okay, what about the other big one? Robbery. What kind of robbery or burglary would you have to see to convince you?
I don't believe he's committed robbery. No.
All right, so there's not. But we were asking in general. All right. So Kendall,
Cool.
there is a line though. Shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, impeach or remove. So Kendall, I hope you have a good New Year. We'll talk again, my friend.
Show me what Russian collusion there was. That's what this all.
We're waiting for Robert Mueller's report. I mean, I cannot tell you what Robert Mueller has. I can tell you what I've seen in open reporting, but
I don't see why campaign finance isn't enough for you, but that's all right.
because Obama paid off his mistresses. You don't know that?
We don't have other presidents who have been caught literally red-handed defrauding campaign finance laws to pay off multiple mistresses, according to the person who actually was the actual bagman. That hasn't happened before.
Great big huge fine on campaign finance.
There is a point, yes, sometimes there are fines, but there is criminality when it's knowing and willfully violating Federal Election Commission laws. And yes, there's the burden of proof on the state to show that. And if they can show that, and if Donald Trump is convicted beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of his peers, would you then say he should be removed from office, or would you say he should stay there anyway?
How about Clinton colluding?
Oh, what about Clinton? Okay, that's it. You win the free prize. You're the first person to say, what about Clinton in 2019 on the show? So I wish I had a prize for you, Kendall. I really do. All right, Kendall, good talking to you. By the way, he's our resident Trump guy, but he has a sense of humor about things, which
It's
is
almost
good.
like Clinton is still president. Oh, wait, no, he hasn't been since I was married.
But no, if you turn on Fox News, what I love about Fox is Hillary Clinton is present on Fox News. So everything is going on there. Like Hillary Clinton today.
Well, now it's AOC. I mean, Fox is so thirsty for AOC. They retweet everything that she says. They take pictures of her clothes. Today there was a big thing where they went to her high school yearbook. They're about to make her a mixtape. I think it's love.
They love. I wrote an article for CNN like 3 or 4 weeks ago about how she apparently has replaced Hillary Clinton, and for them, much longer shelf life. She's 29. Like they've got a new villain for the next. If she wants to stay in Congress or run for other office for 30, 40 years, this is the greatest thing ever. It's a whole new generation, and so it's interesting they have become very obsessed with her. I wonder how this all plays out. I think when the Democratic candidates for president emerge in leadership roles, articulating issues, they'll eclipse all the House Democrats who are now the shiny objects that the media likes a great deal and the right hates. But I really think when you're going to see Elizabeth Warren out there on the campaign, one after the other, Joe Biden come out, Cory Booker, Beto, maybe Bernie run, all of them, all of a sudden, the media is going to flock to them. And we talked about it earlier in the show, and we'll shift gears here for a second, that I need the Democrats to have a counter narrative to Trump. And they've not been able to have it for 2 years. They've been the minority party. Now we have two things changing in 2019. Tomorrow we take the House. Second, the Democrats running for president. The media will be attracted to big name Democrats running for president because that equals ratings. What do you think what would you like them, the leading candidates and the House Democrats, to make thematically the main points to try to win the election for 2020?
Yeah. So my first overall thing, which is not a specific policy prescription, is that the thing that I need most from Democrats going into 2020 is for them to be not afraid. They've spent most of my life being afraid to be progressive, being afraid to articulate a strong vision of America that isn't kind of a corporatist shell company. And so the thing that I want most is for the Democrats to be not afraid. Now, what that turns out, how that redounds in specific policy prescriptions, I don't see how you can run on a progressive platform in 2020 and not have a fully fleshed out climate idea. Like a fully fleshed out, when I am elected, here is what we are going to do to reverse or to mitigate and then eventually reverse the effects of human-caused climate change. I don't see how you can just try to be a leader in 2020 and not have that platform. The other thing that I think you really need to have is I would like to see at least, is some kind of broader vision post-Me Too of how we are going to reform our social structure so that these issues and instances of sexual harassment don't happen and men are held accountable when they do happen.
Interesting.
So for instance, like I need whoever's gonna try to get my vote to explain to me exactly what they're gonna do to end the scourge of mandatory arbitration agreements, which we now understand serve almost no purpose other than to silence legitimate sexual harassment claims in the workplace. Like, I need to see what your plan is for that.
It's interesting, though, you brought up Me Too, because my gut feeling is that Democrats will run from that issue and not want to talk about it because there's a great deal of nuance. It's not completely clear. There's no due process. There's not a standard where we can articulate and go, this is what we're going to do. So whatever you say, you're opening yourselves up for criticism from the left and the right. Because you bring up an issue and you're not progressive enough on it, even though you're well-intentioned, part of our party is going to be like, that's ridiculous. And if you go too far left, and there's also a sense of fairness, which has to be built into this. It can't be just an allegation means you lose your job and your whole career. There has to be some due process. There has to be also proportionality in the penalty.
Is it too much to expect that a person who wants to be president has an idea for what due process looks like?
I wonder what that would be. No, I think no one has brought that up in any of our conversations. And I wonder if any Democrat, if there's a way to articulate it running for president, how you can make an impact on that other than changing societal norms for the better by talking about an issue in a positive way.
One of the reasons why I was saying on TV this weekend, like, I feel like I'm just I don't know who I want right now, and right now I'm just kind of letting all the Bs, the Betos, the Bidens, and the Bernies just like have their white guy off on Twitter.
Right.
One of the white men will emerge. One of the non-white men will emerge, and then I'll try to choose between those two.
And the women too. Don't forget.
That's the thing.
You mean the white people?
Yeah.
Right, when you say white, you meant
I meant literally. There's the white men primary,
right,
and then there's the everybody else primary.
Oh, everyone of color primary.
Right. Somebody's going to emerge between Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar and Kristen Gillibrand and Cory Booker, and that's going to face off against Biden or Beto or Bloomberg or whichever one of those old white men or younger white men they choose. But what I worry about is that the at least on the white man side of the primary, that they will not significantly address Me Too beyond to say, well, I never committed any sexual harassment, which is not leadership. That's covering your backside.
Well, Bernie Sanders could have to have a discussion about it because people may or may not saw it over the holiday break, but former staffers or campaign workers said they had been sexually harassed, even maybe assaulted, when I read quickly, and they wanted to have a meeting with Bernie and certain high-level people.
Yeah, it was a lot more about like money, about like they weren't paid on salary par with. And again, that's what I'm saying. I need, in this moment, I need more than simply I am not culpable. right? I need an actual vision for how we're going to bring us all up to a more moral level than obviously we've been at. You don't think that's likely?
No, if they're not being timid, yeah, it's likely. If they're going to be calculated and worrisome about this could hurt me, I'm going to stay on policy that I know play well with the progressive base, because you're still feeding your own base, whatever side you're on. And if you're progressive, you know the issues that we really care about. If you're just slightly progressive, you're going to know you're going to pull further to the left, or you can say, I'm going to stay where I am and I'll be better for the general election. I think that philosophy's gone. I don't think there's any more pivot back to the center to pick up people.
Yeah, no, because I totally agree with that, and I forget who said it, but somebody has been saying it quite a bit, and I think it's right, that what we need to do is to stop worrying for a second about who can beat Trump. Like that, nobody knows, and that's a problem for August 2020. Between now and August 2020, our job is to find the best candidate, to find the candidate with the broadest coalition, to find the candidate with the best ideas, and again, for me, the candidate who is going to be unafraid to promote those ideas, who isn't going to be embarrassed or ashamed at wanting a society with redistributive income to help out the poor and the struggling, who's going to be unashamed and unafraid to advocate for a society that takes care of our environment, who's going to be unafraid to advocate for a society that holds these Trump sycophants accountable, because it's not going to be enough. Trump eventually will pass from the world stage. It's not going to be enough just to let him go away and let all of these other people who have helped him along the way still stand and still reintegrate back into normalized society, right? Like, your plan to beat Trump also has to include a plan. What are we doing to Stephen Miller when he is removed from the cloak of power?
Did you ever see the movie Inglourious Bastards?
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, enough said. If you've seen it, because one day you're going to take off that Nazi uniform, Brad Pitt says. We got to remember to make sure people remember you were part of that. And we're not going to go any further than that. You know, the idea of, though, pushing new envelope of ideas that are not just now what are mainstream progressive. We had Andrew Yang on right before the break, who's running for president on universal basic income. It's his big thing. Yeah. $1,000 a person. And I could see that being the next, sort of, he's like in the vanguard of that issue now, making it his whole campaign about that issue. Yeah. And then I could see Democrats that creeping into the 2020 discussion. That's
a fascinating conversation. My progressive bona fides start to peter out once we get there, but I think it's a fascinating conversation about universal basic income. And I think the larger point is that we need to have a society that is more fair, top to bottom, than what we have now.
Right. The best point he made, he was a really nice guy. He came in studio here and we spent like an hour together talking, was that, and I'm relying on him, I haven't done the research, just when I say this, but he said he's looked at people who've lost their jobs in the Rust Belt or in the Midwest, and they've gotten retrained, and then they're retrained, and then they go home and they have no jobs anyway. And he goes, that doesn't work. UBI, Universal Basic Income, is a way, it's almost like Keynesian economy for everyone. It's priming the pump by giving everyone $1,000 a month. And as we all know, middle class, lower middle class, people in poverty will spend that $1,000. The biggest chunk of our GDP is consumer spending, so you're helping prime it. Wealthy people will just put in their bank.
Yeah, I would just, again, I find the argument.
I'm not selling it. I'm just saying I was intrigued by the idea that he's seen places where people, because everyone goes, oh, you lost your job in the coal mine, we'll retrain you. Well, you retrain them, but there's no other jobs in that area. So you retrain them to do what? You know, that's him or her. You know, that's the interesting point.
I would just caution people as your black friend, I would just caution that before you roll up into my community talking about universal basic income, you at least also be ready to have the reparations conversation. Right?
That's very interesting.
Like those two issues are like way closer together than some of these economists like to think. So if you're gonna be willing to have that conversation, then you also have to be willing to have the reparations conversation.
On Thursdays, we're going to start this Thursday, but most Thursdays in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to do a thing called Teaching Thursdays, where we're going to do deep dives on topics. And one of them on our list is reparations. Yeah, because I really want to have, because I know a little, I've read some things, but I want to learn too from these experts. And that's an issue in the next few weeks. We're going to have someone on a Thursday for an hour, talk about the history of reparations, where the first promises were made, what happened, and where are we now, and how do we make up for the promise that was made at the time of reparations.
You got to get TNC on that Ta-Nehisi Coates, because I
I
remember.
wish I can get him on. I mean, I kidnap him, so I'm going to get Ta-Nehisi Coates, but that would be great to have. All right, let's take a break. Come back more with our friend Ellie Mostel right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court decision that came down. We'll go back to the ACA case if we have time, but this is actually more important, I think, on some level, that it came down, I think, the last day of our last show, December 21st, Supreme Court 5-4 decision against Trump. But what's really scary is what these 4 conservative Supreme Court justices were going to do for Donald Trump. And it really should have gotten much more press, and the media kind of ignored it. But let's take a break, come right back. We'll be right back after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Voting is the most important civil right of our era because the right to vote preserves all other rights. It's not the Second Amendment. It's not guns. It's voting.
Sirius XM Progress.
New perspectives, important voices, influential ideas. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live January 2nd, 2019. Massive field of Democrats eyeing 2020 run, says MSNBC. This just in, apparently. It's going to be so many people running. So, folks, quick thing here. What most people don't realize about working in radio, it's hungry work. I'm hungry at the end of the show. And cooking can be like a chore. We all know this. So what can you do to make life easier? HelloFresh.com. That's right, HelloFresh, the #1 home meal kit. They take the guesswork out of cooking. Everything you want is in that box. They've got a range of great menu items. If you like vegetarian stuff, the gorgeous green farro ball. If you like chipotle spice steak, they've got that. You like fish dishes, they have countless ones, including their glazed salmon. And it's only $6.99 per serving. Everything is in the box, all courtesy of HelloFresh.com. And right now, the new year, you can try it for $80 off. That's right, $20 off your first 4 boxes by going to HelloFresh.com/Dean. You got to put hello, HELLO, fresh.com/Dean. And when you check out, put in Dean 80. That's for the $80 of savings. That's right. HelloFresh.com/Dean. Check it out. Use promo code Dean80. You're gonna love the food. I've cooked many of their meals. They are delicious. I like the meatloaf a lot. I like the chicken offerings a great deal. Again, HelloFresh.com/Dean. All right, my friends. So let's talk about something that got little coverage because the holidays were here. I understand it. This was actually very, very scary. It was very alarming. It came down December 21st, which was the last Friday of my live show. Didn't get to cover it, even though I thought it was important. But in a 5-4 ruling, the Supreme Court left intact a lower court ruling that said Trump's proclamation, folks, this wasn't a law that was passed, his proclamation that said government cannot consider applications for asylum from anyone who crossed the board illegally. That proclamation was unconstitutional or illegal. And tell us a little bit about what the law was before we get into the decision, because this is really shocking, folks. I'm not kidding you. Donald Trump sat in his office, tried to rewrite a statute, and you're going to hear what happened.
Right. So there's a very clear statute so if you're seeking asylum into this country, that says in our statutes about asylum law that you can apply for asylum once you set foot in this country. It works a little bit like sanctuary in the old Catholic Church. You get in the door, you can claim sanctuary. It doesn't matter if you came in through the door, if you're the hunchback and you swang in through the window, through the belfry. If you get into the church, you can claim sanctuary. If you get into America, you can claim asylum. That law that we have codified in our statutes also tracks, and this is an important point, tracks with United Nations international human rights law. There are precepts promulgated by the United Nations, promulgated by human rights organizations that say refugees can argue and apply for refugee status as long as they are in the country where they are asking to be refugees. It doesn't matter where they came in.
Right.
Trump, because he thinks the president makes him God, just decided that law was no longer applicable. And so he said, by proclamation, as you aptly put it, this was not passed through Congress, this was not passed through the Senate, that now asylum applications can only be accepted if you come into the country at an official legal point of entry. So Tijuana,
right,
JFK, wherever. And not just if you somehow get into the country otherwise. And again, that is a direct violation of a statute on the books. We have I talk about this a lot. Trump does a lot of things that violate norms.
Right.
We think they were laws like, oh, the president has to release his tax returns. No, it turns out he doesn't. It's just normal that they do. There was not a codified law making them do that. This was a codified law. This was Trump changing the way to apply for asylum. That's an actual law that Trump violated, and so it was appealed.
Right, and it was appealed from the lower court up, and this is when Trump attacked the judge as being a Democrat or an Obama appointment.
Right, Roberts had to step in and say there are no Democrat judges.
Now, here's the thing. I mean, this is not debatable. This is not partisan. Donald Trump tried to rewrite a very clear, on its face, federal statute by saying that you have to be here legally, cross a normal entry point to apply for asylum, as opposed to what it says clearly now, you can apply anywhere. So you would think the Supreme Court would rule 9-0 that Donald Trump was wrong and side with the appellate courts. What actually happened?
Instead, and again, the appellate court said, Donald Trump, you can't do this. Then the circuit court said, Donald Trump, you can't just do this. Then we all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did say, Donald Trump, you can't do this, but only 5-4, with John Roberts being the 5th crucial vote for stopping Trump. And the frightening thing that I think has bothered both you and I and other court watchers on Twitter, Trump got 4 votes.
Right.
There were the 4 Republicans, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch, all voted to allow Trump to change the law by fiat. One of the real scary things here, you said that it should have been 9-0. I would have expected it to be 8-1 because I think that Brett Kavanaugh is not a legitimate Supreme Court justice. I think he is a partisan hack in ropes.
Right.
So I always expect Brett Kavanaugh to do the wrong thing. But for the rest of them, the other conservatives, these are people who run around talking about what they call in legal interpretation textualism. Right. So Neil Gorsuch, his like claim to intellectual fame is to be one of these hardcore textualists, which, without getting too much into the weeds, basically says that if the law is clear on its face, then we should apply the clear meaning of the law and not read other things into it that make the law function. Right. So if it says you can't drink Kool-Aid, then it means you can't drink Kool-Aid, and we shouldn't look to whether or not you're dying of thirst. You just can't drink Kool-Aid, right? So that's Neil Gorsuch is one of these guys. And yet, when the law was clear, when the text was beyond clear, when not only the American text, but the international human rights text is beyond clear, Neil Gorsuch was still like, Trump can do what he wants.
And that is remarkable that there were 4 of the 5. I mean, if Roberts didn't come over to side with the liberals, what would have happened is Donald Trump could have rewritten a law sitting in his office, and that would have emboldened Trump to do this over and over again on countless laws. Yes. Who knows what he would have done? He would have just signed a thing. Congress has to pay for the wall, $15 billion tomorrow, and tested everything. Let's give it a shot. Thank God Roberts did this. And I wonder if Roberts go ahead. I think Roberts did this because he believed in it, but I think Roberts was also safeguarding the institution here.
Yeah, I think this was a straight up safeguard the institution of the court from Roberts. But I pulled back on giving him too much praise for simply following the law. It's
right.
It's that old Chris Rock joke. Like, you're supposed to take care of your kids. Right. What do you want, a cookie? Roberts is supposed to follow the law. I'm reluctant to give him too much praise for following the law, because the other 4 didn't.
It's unreal that they would have. So, folks, we were perilously close. Talk about how democracies die. We were perilously close to seeing a president become an all omniscient, powerful person without any check on him at all.
And it's why we don't live in a world where we can trust the Supreme Court to do anything right. Because again, it hangs by Roberts's. And again, people have been saying like, "Oh, Roberts is the new swing justice." Roberts is not a swing justice. Roberts is a Republican justice. He does have a respect for the rule of law and for the limited power of the Supreme Court. That's a little bit different from his conservative colleagues.
Sure.
And so it's not that Roberts is suddenly going to like uphold affirmative action or defend the rights of women. Like that's not his bag. But we do kind of expect that Roberts will uphold basic legal functionality, which is why, again,
I have to go to a break, Alan, but
the health of Ruth Bader Ginsburg is still.
Oh my God! Let's take a quick break. Come right back.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back. Dean Obadala Show. We're live January 2nd, 2019. That's right. It's the new year. We are here. We're feisty, ready to go. In studio, our friend Elie Mystal. See him all the time on MSNBC. Check out Above the Law, where he's the editor. He's a great attorney and a funny guy. Elie, we got like a minute left. I don't think we can start a new case here. No. Let me ask you this. What do you suggest Democrats do for the candidates? There are going to be so many, in a way that's productive for them. I mean, they're going to attack each other at some point, even though they're going to say they're not. We have less than a minute. Yeah. But is there any suggestion?
Just keep your eye on the prize. That's my 1 minute thing. Keep your eye on the prize. Remember that we have to build a coalition here. So try not to bite each other off at the
Not the burn. I can't wait, though, until Trump gets attacked at a debate by 20 Democrats and he freaks out. Loser, hashtag each one by name. What's a Twitter handle? All right, folks, we're going to come right back with more Dean Obadala Show. Elie, thanks very much for being for the whole hour. We're going to come back with Aisha Moodie-Mills is joining us for the next hour, but we'll take some calls as well right here on the Dean Obadala Show, 866-997-4748.